Bum,
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 bum, bum,
bum,
bum.
bum.
Bring. Wow, feels good to do that again. It's
It
been a
does
while.
feel good. It does feel good to do that again.
Welcome everybody to a special spring training preview edition of the Blue Review. I'm Marcus Grant, joined by Greg Bergman and Jeff Spiegel. And fellas, previously on Dodger baseball, it was back on the 1st of November the last time. I think we were all sort of in one spot together. That's because the Dodgers had just finished a 7-game World Series victory over the Toronto Blue Jays to claim their second consecutive World Series title. And a whole lot has happened since we last were with you. By the way, we're glad that you could be with us here bright and early in the morning at 6:30. Greg, Jeff, how you guys feeling this morning?
What's going on? I love the hat. It's a great hat. You're fully Dodgered out.
I got my brand new mug with all the titles on them.
Look at you.
Yeah,
It's
man.
just everywhere. And they got Jeff. He's got his hat. You got the Nike all over himself.
You're
sponsored?
aptly corporate, Greg, today because just no Dodgers gear anywhere to be found. You just look like you're going to the stock market this morning, while Marcus and I look like fans of the team that we root for.
I just figured if there's any time to kind of go all out, it's our special mid-February spring training preview edition, right? So, all right. I mean, look, obviously a lot to talk about. We're not going to get to it all, obviously, in 30 minutes. And we'll be back with you probably sometime in early March once there have been a few games played, once the World Baseball Classic is underway and everything. But if we are going through the offseason, Jeff, what is the biggest? Is it too simple to say Kyle Tucker is the biggest thing or Edwin Diaz is the biggest thing? What is the biggest thing that happened to this organization since we last saw them throw a baseball?
To me, it's Kyle Tucker and Edwin Diaz for sure, but even greater than the players themselves, it's the idea that the Dodgers went out and they just signed the best player on the market, which is Kyle Tucker, and they signed the best reliever on the market, which was Edwin Diaz. Like, it's not even, this individual player and here's what he brings, although Kyle Tucker is literally the perfect match for what they were looking for in their biggest area of need, the outfield. It's just that the Dodgers said, screw it. We're going to go throw $100-ish million at these two players because we can, and the best team in baseball is going to get dramatically better.
We were talking this morning, Greg, before we came on. The news about Tony Clark, the head of the players union, who is stepping down for reasons.
I don't think they're reasons. I mean, it's a reason for sure.
But to that's kind of beside the point of kind of where I'm going with this, right? Because obviously, Jeff talks about spending big money to bring in the best players on the market, which brought the hue and cry from all across Major League Baseball about how the Dodgers are ruining things. For better or worse, do you think that was part of the organization's thought process? Like, hey, man, this is probably coming to an end. Let's push our chips into the table one last time and just make something happen.
No, absolutely, 100%. That this team was looking at it like we're probably going to go to a lockout. And then that something's going to change, whether it's a salary cap or whatever it happens to be. They do think that something was going to happen that was going to be curb the way that they spend their money. And because of that, they said, hey, let's go all completely in, which is the exact right move, by the way, and say, let's get all this stuff grandfathered in. They can't take it away from us on the back end. So let's have the best team possible when everything changes. And then when they get the next year, when everyone else tries to spend and defer money and they're not allowed to, guess what? We already have, and you're already set up for the future moving forward with now a youngish Kyle Tucker on the team as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, people have asked me this the whole offseason, like, do I feel bad about the Dodgers ruining? No, not even a little bit. No. Not even slightly. No one felt bad when this team was stumbling over its own feet against the Padres and Diamondbacks in the first round. I'm not going to feel bad about it now. Anyway,
by the way, they created us. They absolutely created it with the Astros cheating us out of World Series, and then everybody, Mickey Mouse, all that kind of stuff, championship. If they just would have shut up and not done anything, maybe they wouldn't have done this. But you just throw all those narratives out there, and you created this monster, and now you have to live with it and try to take it down, and it's not going to be easy.
Man, I can imagine. I can just imagine a tearful Andrew Friedman in the front office saying, "You made me sign Shohei Ohtani. I wasn't going to do this otherwise, but you forced me to do that." All right. Anyway, back to the matter at hand, though. As we get ready for spring training, the roster for the most part, we know who's going to be on the 25-man. Give or take maybe a few injuries here or there, but if there is still a weakness, Jeff, on this team, you talked about them getting Kyle Tucker and filling a big need for them. Anywhere else that, at first glance sort of says, okay, this might need some shoring up by the time we get to, let's just say September. I was gonna say till opening day, but with the way this team is, and where is this team deficient right now? And I know people are gonna be like, why are you being negative? Because it's February, man, and we got 6 months of this. So where does this team need help?
I mean, I'll be positive. There really is basically nowhere that they're going to need help. And even if we're doing the come post trade deadline, where are they going to be deficient? I think some of the areas that you could look at are going to be dramatically better. They have signed, I think we're up to at least 3 players who will not be ready before basically the trade deadline, and Kike Hernandez, Evan Phillips, and then bringing back Brock Stewart, who's expected back around that time. And so all of those guys are going to appear to be trade deadline acquisitions. I think the starting pitching is elite in the top 4. You've got Emmett Sheehan, I think, in that 5 spot, who's been great. And then you've got 4 or 5 young guys right behind them who will be eating innings as soon as it's needed. The bullpen, I could give you 13 names of bullpen guys that I would feel totally fine with being in the bullpen. And the lineup, I mean, we could have a conversation, I guess, about who's going to start at second base at the beginning of the year with Tommy Edman hurt. But I mean, that is literally the definition of splitting hairs, because even there, the Dodgers have a couple guys that I'm looking forward to them having a chance to grab that position. So I think going into the offseason, corner outfield was a real concern of, man, it's going to be rough. Whoever plays there, and that player is going to be dramatically worse than everyone else in the lineup. They shored that up with Kyle Tucker. Every other area of this roster, of this team, of this lineup is totally stacked.
I mean, just again, that was sort of the big thing, right? I think we all came into the offseason saying that they've got to figure out something, because as much as we love Teoscar Hernandez, another season of Teo in right field was just not going to work out. So they've obviously figured that out.
I think we all would have had a conniption. It would have been just absolutely. I'd have a heart attack.
I mean, keep in mind, I'm a big Teoscar's not going to be a whole lot better in left field. I know everybody thinks moving into left is going to solve problems. I will say this till I'm blue in the face. He graded out worse in left field than he did in right field 2 years ago. So I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. I'm just saying don't assume that all of our problems have disappeared. That's all I'm saying.
But you can kind of hide him in left field a little bit. You don't need his arm. Right field is such a premium position, I feel like, that you need somebody with a big arm. You need somebody that's good with taking routes. Left field, he's not great in left field either, but at the same time, it's not as premium a position. I would say. Do you disagree with that?
The consequences are less. The consequences are less because you screw something up in right, the throw to third is a lot further. So you screw something up in left, it limits how far the guy can go, because it's probably just a double and not a triple.
Yeah, I mean, the ball's in front of you, right? Even if he kicks it a couple of times, if you're the runner, the ball's still in front of you, so you got to kind of think about it.
Yeah, you're stopping first to thirds, which I think is extremely important. Now, that doesn't mean second to home isn't a possibility, which is probably worse in that scenario. But still, I feel safer because he's here for a couple more years. If he's going to be out there, he's got to be in left, not in right.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the consensus. So the Dodgers do solve that problem. That was the other thing about the offseason. People are like, well, how can you justify Kyle Tucker? I'm like, well, because he actually fills the need. I know people are upset about it, but he legitimately fills a need for this team coming into play right field defensively, and then what he gives them with his bat as well, it definitely fills a spot for them. We talk about the rotation. So my wife was asking me this the other day, Greg. Rank the Dodgers starting pitching in order from who the best to the, I'll use air quotes here, the worst, the least.
I want 1
least
through 10,
best.
Greg. I want 1 through 10.
so you want 1A, 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D?
Sure.
Or do you want
Sure. And then what?
So
2 at
rank it. So I think that Yamamoto is the best of all of them. So I would put Yamamoto in the top. Then it starts getting a little bit tight. So Snell's not going to be back until middle of the year or whenever or maybe not middle of the year. But
he says. I think opening day's up for debate. He will be back early in the year. I think he has said he wants to be ready for opening day. The Dodgers kind of were like, yeah, that's nice that you want to be ready. But I don't think he's going to be gone for more than the first month and a half.
Yeah, and that's fine. We don't need Blake Snell at the beginning of the season. He need him at the end of the year. So I would probably put Blake Snell second there. I think I go Shohei third and Glasnow fourth, which, by the way, that's like Glasnow's a number one starter on most teams.
Yeah. So
the fact that I'm even thinking about putting him in the fourth, and then it starts getting into the difference between Sasaki, Sheehan, River Ryan, Gavin Stone, and there's just too many variables because River Ryan's coming off of an AC, the Tommy John, and Emmett Sheehan, Gavin Stone's just coming back from being injured. He was fantastic when he was healthy. Sheehan was great. He's probably closer to the bottom of the three of those guys. So I mean, it's kind of up and down, and you can still throw in Wrobleski in there, even though he's probably going to be in the bullpen. So I mean, your top four are just so stupid that where you want to go 5, 6, 7, 8. It's really just a crapshoot from there.
The thing that I will not say, at least not in any real way, is that the Dodgers have too many arms. Because if there's something we have learned from the last handful of years, you cannot have enough arms. But I will say that maybe this is me being weird or something, because 2 years ago, it was the bullpen that really carried that team in 2024 to the World Series. This past year, it was the starting pitching that had to do the job because the bullpen was a shambles by the end of the year. Am I crazy, Jeff, for thinking that we are back to maybe I won't say carrying, but that maybe the bullpen, as good as the starting pitching is, that maybe the bullpen is potentially the strength of this team again this year, the pitching staff?
Real quick on the you can't have too many pitchers. I did this to my guy Bruce on Sunday. Do either of you want to guess which Dodgers pitcher made the second most starts last year behind Yamamoto? Yamamoto made 30. Does anybody want to guess who made the second most starts?
I would guess either Sheehan or probably Shohei.
I was going to say Sheehan?
Sheehan's 6th with 12. Shohei is 5th with 14. It was Clayton Kershaw. Fittingly, 20.
Kershaw.
Wow.
Look at that.
Yeah. But Glasnow was 3rd. Dustin May was 4th. And then Ohtani, Sheehan, Snell, 5th, 6th, and 7th. So to give you a sense of, like, they had 2 guys that made more than 18 starts last year, which is pretty crazy. But to circle back to your question, Marcus, I really think both of these groups I would put on par with one another, because I think when you look at the rotation, Greg just went through it. When they're healthy, they have 4 number ones at the top. Shohei going to be back fully as a pitcher in a way that we have not seen him yet in a Dodger uniform. I think Snell, like I would go Yamamoto 1, Snell 2. Then I think there's a tiny bit of a gap. I think Shohei's 3, Glasnow's 4. The one thing I disagree, I think Emmett Sheehan is like clearly the number 5 starter on this. I think there's a gap between Sheehan and everybody that comes after. I mean, he was so freaking good last year for the Dodgers. And then I think it gets, if you want to talk about fun stuff, it's River Ryan, it's Gavin Stone, it's Roki Sasaki, and I'm glad you said Justin Wrobleski, because I think those 4 guys competing for the number 6 spot in a 6-man rotation, plus, Snell missing opening day. Do they rest Yamamoto coming back from the World Baseball Classic? But then on the bullpen side, like, again, I'm going to talk about when they're healthy, which is this inevitable, like, impossible thing to imagine. But it's Edwin Diaz, arguably the best closer in baseball. It's Tanner Scott, who, big deal whether or not he can bounce back. But let's not forget that a year ago, he was one of the best relief pitchers in Major League Baseball. They just re-signed Evan Phillips, who's has the 4th best ERA over the last 4 years in all of Major League Baseball among relievers. You've got Dreyer, you've got Vesia, you've got all these dudes, Brock Stewart, that you throw into that group. I think both of these are totally stacked. I would say the rotation I feel better about. It feels like there's less variables. There's less does Tanner Scott bounce back? Does Evan Phillips come back healthy? Does Brock Stewart come back healthy? Feels like less question marks in the rotation. But I think we're talking about 2 of the best units in Major League Baseball when you talk about both of these groups.
So let me jump in here for a second, Marcus. Sorry. We're getting into spring training. It's all starting to happen. This is kind of what this is about, is the spring training primer, what to be looking for. You and I were talking just in a separate text at one point, Jeff, about how
this was our Raiders text message, Marcus. You weren't being left out of anything.
We took you out of it because we wanted to spare you from the Raiders nonsense. It's constant. We have a Raiders that goes every day about something that the Raiders are doing. But we started talking about the Dodgers in there as well. Now, if you look at it, the 26-man roster, it's kind of set, and you could argue that there's one, maybe two spots available in both the pitchers and the hitters.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to run through it real fast. You tell me who you agree with is on and who you think is, nope, that guy's not on here. And then who gets that last spot. Because I have it as only one spot available in pitchers if they're going 13 and 13. So Diaz in, Dryer, I think he's in. Do you guys agree that Dryer is a lock?
I think Dryer's in. Yeah.
Yep, lock. Glasnow lock. Sasaki lock. Scott lock.
I'm not
Sheehan.
positive Roki's a lock. That's my hot
You're
take.
not
We'll circle back
positive.
there.
Roki. Okay, well, we'll start. What do you think about that, Marcus? Sasaki.
I think Roki's in. I think just his postseason sort of gives him a leg up.
Okay, so let's we'll circle back to that. Scott is a lock. Sheehan is a lock. Snell is a lock. I have Gratterall, but he's not
going to be ready for opening day.
Yeah,
so
not ready for a
I
while.
can take him off. So then we'll go. That's an empty space. Trinan lock. Vezia lock. Yamamoto lock. Wrobleski lock. Correct. So that's 2, maybe 3 spots that are open.
Yeah, and the Wrobleski thing I think is hard. They just have to figure out what starting pitchers are going to be healthy on opening day, because we know it's not going to be Blake Snell. Again, I'm curious how they handle Yamamoto coming back from the WBC. If they just run him right back out there, possible. But if they do, they would still have 2 spots in the rotation open, because they are going to run a 6-man rotation. So I think who is the number 6 starter, and I guess in this case, who the number 7 starter, and then the guys that aren't in those spots, whether it be River Ryan or Justin Wrobleski or whoever, like, do those guys go to the bullpen or do they go down to AAA to be starting pitchers? That's where I think it gets a little bit more complicated, because it's not building a playoff roster where you just put your best 26 guys and figure the rest out. I think some of these guys they're going to want stretched out as starters to be available as starters, which you can't do in the bullpen.
So the people that I left off: Ben Kasparius, Edgardo Henriquez, Kyle Hurt, Will Klein, Landon Knack, who we forgot about. That is was another guy that can slide right into that rotation. River Ryan, Gavin Stone, Paul Gervais, and Ronan Kopp. So Ronan Kopp is an interesting guy too, because he is kind of on the same track as Jack Dryer, where he was at Rule 5. He was going to they protected him from going into the Rule 5 draft, so they wanted to hold on to him. They believed in. So if that's the case, is he one of the guys that's going to make it, depending on what happens in spring training? Who in all those guys I just named, do you think, can you name 3 of that get in here on opening day?
So I would say I really like Kyle Hurt. I think he's a young guy that we haven't gotten to see at the major league level. They've kept him as a starter. He keeps getting hurt. I think there's a lot of people in the prospect world that have said the moment they make this guy a relief pitcher, he's going to be a back end relief pitcher. Like, the stuff is just that good. It just hasn't translated to being a starter and staying healthy. So he appears to be healthy. So I would keep an eye on Kyle Hurt this spring for sure. And then, I mean, I really like Ben Kasparius. Like, I think he was one of their best relief pitchers for a long stretch of last season. And I know it all blew up at the end of the season. They're toying with him. Starter, reliever. He's off the playoff roster. So he's just a guy I like. But I mean, really, like, Enriquez, the guy throws 102 miles an hour. Kopp's a lefty that throws like upper 90s as well. So that's what I mean when I say they have an embarrassment of riches. I think all of the guys we just mentioned are going to be doing the up down between Oklahoma City and Los Angeles throughout the season, as well as probably 4 other pitchers we've never heard of before who will be on the DFA train multiple times. But that's what I mean when I say depth, because when we're talking Kasparius, Enriquez, Hurt, Klein, Kopp, like, that's 5 guys right there. Paul Gervais, 6 guys that easily could be in the majors and none of us would bat an eye. So there's some depth there for sure.
Which, by the way, Will Klein will, no matter what he does for the rest of his Dodger career, will always have 2025. We'll always have 2025. On the hitter side of things, and I guess you can throw the pitchers in here too. Obviously, with spring training started, we get the non-roster invitees. Some interesting, if not unsurprising names in there. Josue DePaula is a non-roster invitee. Zaire Hope in that group as well. Jeff, any of these guys that you really, I don't expect, DePaula or Hope or anything to be, knocking on the major league door, but anybody that you're really kind of interested in watching over the next couple weeks?
Yeah, I'm going to set aside the Ha-Seong Kim, Alex Freeland, because I think that's like genuinely the most relevant conversation.
Right.
But the 2 guys,
add Rojas in there, by the way.
What's that?
Add Rojas in there, by the way.
Yeah. Rojas is going to be, he'll be hanging out no matter what. I think Zach Earhart and James Tibbs III are two outfielders that I would just say keep an eye on, and this is the reason. They are not better than Josue De Paula, Zaihiro, Mike Sirota, Eduardo Quintero. They're not better than that group, but these are the two guys they got from Dustin May. They both came over with a decent amount of, like, Tibbs was a first-round pick, Earhart was a third-round pick, and both of them absolutely exploded after coming over from the Red Sox, as prospects tend to do when they come to the Dodgers. These guys are just simply ahead of them on the track. Like, they are probably going to start the year in AAA. And so Earhart and Tibbs, I joked that my bold prediction was I'm not going to pick one of them, but that one of these guys, I won't tell you which, is going to have a massive spring, and that there's going to be like the buzz of camp is going to be like, are they really just going to keep James Tibbs down in Oklahoma City? Like, are they really going to keep Earhart? Like, I think both those guys have the potential to be not future all-stars, but just have a really big spring, bang on the door, and they're just closer. So when it comes to young guys, Earhart and Tibbs, I would say keep an eye on.
Oh,
Go ahead.
No. That's interesting. I didn't even think about those guys, and it's great to have more guys. This is what the Dodgers do, though. When they trade guys, they trade for prospects. They're like, oh, these prospects will be great. Look at it. Zaire Hope was another one of those guys that they got from the Michael Busch trade. So, I mean, I was thinking that it was going to be guys like Ryan Ward, who they put on the 40-man roster because they didn't want to lose him, and he was the MVP of AAA last year. I understand that he doesn't play a great defense, but he has a lot of power, so there's always a space for a guy like that. So nothing on Ward then that you would think, or Ward or Siani is on the 40-man roster too. I don't know too much about him, though.
Siani is basically a Justin Dean replacement, incredible defensive center fielder that can't hit like a lick. So he'll be around for depth. I think Ryan Ward, it will be really interesting. The thing with Ward is it's kind of like, you know what you have in a guy that's going to strike out a ton, hit for power, and can't really play corner outfield defense. So best case for the Dodgers, honestly, is if he has a big spring, I think, and then they can move him for something. That would be best case for Ryan Ward and probably for the Dodgers. But I think that depends on, like, do Earhart and Tibbs develop? Because they do need the depth in the outfield. Besides the three obvious starters, there's reports that Ha-Seong Kim's going to play some center field. Obviously, Kike Hernandez when he gets back. But, like, Alex Call is going to be in the mix. But they don't really have a backup plan if Kyle Tucker, Teoscar Hernandez, or Andy Pages gets hurt. They don't have, like, an obvious, like, oh, this guy slots in. So I think Ward is, like, right in that second tier of the depth chart. And while that feels like a waste for a guy like him, I think if they could replace him or find somebody that's as good as him and move Ward, I think they would. So that's what I would keep an eye
on. Jeff mentioned Ha-Seong Kim, and last year we kind of had the whole campaign of like he needs to play more. Then he started playing more. We're like, hey, maybe he needs to play less. Greg, what is he just sort of doomed to kind of be a utility guy? I mean, I guess he plays until Tommy Edman comes back, but I would assume he's just the guy off the bench, right? A bat off the bench with a glove.
Yeah, I think he's a great glove. I think what Jeff was saying about Siani is kind of what Ha-Seong Kim is for the infield perspective, that he's a great glove. He can fill in at second base, he can fill in at short, and he just can't hit. The whole thing on him was that he couldn't hit lefties and he couldn't hit velocity, and those are things that you need to be able to do in the major leagues. It was kind of like Gavin Lux. He couldn't hit lefties, so you have no spot on this team, and wasn't a great defender. So it just didn't fit. Now he's much younger, can get better, and he's working really hard in this offseason. He apparently put on a ton of weight, and which he already had massive thighs, but he put on a bunch already. So hopefully he can find some. He just needs to get on base, and if he can do that with regularity, like he did at the beginning of the season last year, then he could make this team and be the starting second baseman just splitting time with Miguel Rojas. If not, then he's going to be back in AAA, and they're going to try and move him. But this is his off season to get it all figured out. And we do have to go in just a second, so let's wrap up.
Yep, I was going to say, getting back in the flow. Just remember the timing. Yep. So obviously, look, this is just our spring training primer. 25 minutes, not enough time to get into all of this. But Jeff, I know you guys are keeping the conversation going year round over where you are. What you guys got going on?
Yeah, tonight, Dodger Blue 1958 over on YouTube. Please check us out. We're live every Tuesday night, every Thursday night, every Sunday night. So Anthony Witrato and I will be on tonight. We'll be talking a little bit more about the Tony Clark news and then all the stuff going on in Dodgers camp. So
yeah, absolutely check that. Sure, I'm sure Anthony's got some interesting insight on that too. It's worth checking out for sure. So stick around. The Sedano and Cap Morning Extravaganza coming up next with Greg and a cast of thousands. And Meantime, appreciate Jeff being here. Appreciate all you guys being here in the chat as well. We'll be back with you probably in a couple of weeks as we kick this thing off for real. The Dodgers going for their third straight World Series title. But in the meantime, that'll do it for this edition of the Blue Review. For Jeff, for Greg, I am Marcus. Think Blue, everybody. We'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks.
See ya.